Thank you, Lori. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on our webinar. So I have a couple of things that I want to share with you as far as what we covered in webinar number 1. So there is a short set of slides to do that recap. Then we'll actually go through a very straightforward set of activities and processes and describe what it would take to implement service ops within your organization. With those 3 easy steps, we actually want to introduce a new product. We have partnered with a new company. It's a startup, and they have some very innovative technology targeted towards service operations, targeted towards enterprise applications. And we felt that that would be a very compelling way to wrap up this webinar to give you a brief demonstration, and we'll turn that over to Marie, who's also on one of our facilitators, to give you that overview. A lot of this first elements of the webinar is grounded in a lot of best practice. It's grounded a little bit in DevOps and a little bit in ITIL. So those of you who are coming at this problem from a different set of angles, we hope that the meat of this presentation resonates with you, and certainly as you see the presentation and the demonstration, you'll see a very compelling solution to help you move forward on your journey. So with that, let me talk about the recap of a higher level set of discussions around service operations. So this is an ITIL description of what effective service operations require. And as you read the text, it certainly is a goal of all IT organizations to be able to provide better services. And in the areas of the puzzle pieces of these diagrams, ITIL actually, we believe, gets it wrong a little bit, where it talks about problem management, incident, event, access, and request. Those are the core constructs of service operations. It left out config, and we feel very strongly that config, or elements of config, are very important to do effective service operations. So that was something that we discussed in webinar 1. As we move forward, another recap item was the discussion around data versus information. And if you're like most organizations, data, you have a lot of data, but data is, from our standpoint, inaccessible, or it is in silos. And to be able to go through IT service operations and manage and maintain your production environments, you have a lot of data to troll through. That we talk a lot about the noise that the data produces. We talk about the volume of the data. We talk about the disparate technology stacks that all this data is being produced, whether you're in the network or the server environment or the application environment. But that data is less than useful for most organizations. So we talk about conceptually the idea of how do you turn data into information and ultimately knowledge. We'll be focused a lot about information, but information, if you look at the text here, it is processed data. It is also structured data. It's accessible, relevant, and timely data. So that, as you can look at this information and look at the data after it's been going through this process, that's when you can be more effective in your job. It's going to be how you be more effective in doing service operations. It's why we feel very strongly also that people aren't moving up the maturity curve from an IT operations standpoint because they are swimming in data and lacking information. So looking at solutions, looking at ways to turn that data into information, to turn that data and have it processed automatically, have it structured automatically, have it very accessible based on your role in the organization, making sure it's relevant and timely. If tools that you have today or you need to look gives you this level of structure, etc., that is where you can begin to climb that maturity curve, if you will, to do better service operations. So those ideas will pervade into what we hope to be the 3 easy steps of better IT ops. And this is that concept of IT operations and a journey and evolution for taking your information that's being produced by these different layers of the organization, services and applications at the top, networking at the bottom. We talked about in webinar 1 that there is 2 major elements of this stack, and you take a look at the DevOps view. There's a dev layer, or the dev data, and the operations data. But be able to combine all this information from the services layer all the way on down to the networking layer, to be able to process that information, structure it, make it accessible, relevant, and timely, that is going to enable you to do better IT service ops. So these are the major conceptual points that you need to look for to do service operations within your organization and be able to get more proactive, certainly less reactive. If critical incidents happen in your environment, if you have access to this information, it'll shorten your MTTR, your mean time to resolution. All these things happen, but you have to stay true to this overall construct, and the tools are just the enabler of this, right? So, we know tools enable you as the human operations person to do your job better, but if you understand this picture, you understand the structure and how to get there from the left to the right, you will automatically, in our opinion, be on a well down the road to do better service operations. So with that, let's talk about the formula. So what is the formula? In webinar 1, we talked about, if you are going to do IT ops, there's this transformation exercise of taking your data and turning that into information. And this transformation exercise, we feel you can do in relatively three easy steps. And taking the information that you probably already have, it's probably in multiple tools today. It's probably in your ticketing system, your ITSM system. It's probably in your operations databases. It's probably in spreadsheets. It's taking all this information and turning that into that information to do better operations. That's the formula for success in service operations. And let's talk about how to do that in relatively three easy steps. So as we move along to the second part of the webinar, I really went very quickly because I'd like to finish and get into the product demonstration. Lori, is there any questions that maybe, or give you opportunity to do a chat and ask me some relatively quick questions about webinar 1?
Rick, we have no questions at this point. I think we can move forward.
Great. So transforming IT operational data in three easy steps. So you gave us the formula, Rick. You gave us the original concepts of IT service operations. You gave us this idea of how we can process that data and turn it into information. So what is the formula? What are the steps that I can take? So let's go into that in the next slide. So step number 1, if you're taking this information from the service layer all the way on down, inventory your critical applications. Now this sounds very ITIL-ish. It is very ITIL-ish. So one of the things we want to stress though is people describe what are IT applications or services. From this point of view, from an IT service operations point of view, you need to really consider the operations view of an application or a service versus the business definition of an application or service. I've been to many, many meetings about what is an IT service, and you can quickly fall into that rat hole about defining your business services. Put that all aside. Consider this strongly from an operations standpoint. And what do I mean by operations standpoint? When you have a business application, maybe it's your claims system. Well, this executives of your organization claims it is this big, hairy IT service for sure. But when you look at it from an operations standpoint, you may have two major instances of your claims system, one on the East Coast and the West Coast. When you're defining your applications, define it on the major application component and define two apps from an ops standpoint. You have a West Coast claims system, we have our East Coast claims system. They're theoretically being upgraded at different times, right? They're theoretically being maintained and managed by different support teams, maybe some shared, maybe some regional support teams. When you define that application, in this case that claim system, you're really defining two major application instances. And those are the aspects and those are the way to inventory what your critical applications are. Step 1, don't worry about the business aspect. Define your critical applications from an operations standpoint. And if you do that, your IT ops teams, by the way, have this already. It's the way the IT organization's aligned. It's how you view the organization, the applications. It's how you monitor them. It's where you stand up in which data center, virtual or cloud or otherwise. You have this defined. Your ops teams have this defined. They know the data very well. And you go to that information, you collect that. That's step 1, defining your critical application from an operations standpoint. Step 2, once you define those services and applications from an operations standpoint, we suggest you start with a very simple 2 or 3 tier application model. Now if you look at all the complexity here on the left, where you have the services and applications on the top, you have the networking storage on the bottom. Take this, and really if you've ever seen my CMDB type presentation, you know that there are 55 different classes to model this. Put that all aside. What you want to do to start with down this journey is define a very simple 2 or 3 tier application model. 2 tiers work very well for small to medium applications. 3 tiers probably fit to even the very largest applications. 3 tiers is usually more than enough. So when you look at it, define your application instances that I just talked about. On the 2-tier model, define your hosts. And a lot of the discovery information fills in all the detail that you require around that host. The discovery tools are very good at that. So if you want to deploy your discovery tools to filter it out for that information, you certainly can. But to understand what application and hosts are impacted, that helps you from a monitoring standpoint, it helps you from a change standpoint, it helps you communicate better between your app teams and your infrastructure teams. The 2-tier model is very simple, and I tell you, from our experience, most organizations, most support organizations have these 2-tier models already in spreadsheets. So you have that. It'll avoid a lot of costly deployment of discovery tools, which we know take longer than we want, but your teams already have the 2-tier model. If you need more structure, and we just got off a call with a financial services company just yesterday, and they have a lot of this information in their CMDB. They have a very structured 3-tier, maybe 3.5-tier model. I'll talk about half later, but they have this 3-tier model that is really focused on the application systems, i.e. a grouping of your objects, and then the objects themselves. So that also very well understood from an operations standpoint. It gets away from this modeling exercise, which most ops teams don't really understand or know. It's mainly an architecture type set of conversations, which really don't necessarily work well from an ops standpoint. So if you understand that, a 3-tier model works for, a 2 and 3-tier works for almost 90% of what we've seen out there. And then again, finally, people ask us, can I use discovery tools? Absolutely you can. You can fill in the information and they become just attributes that you want to see and maintain. So go through this 2 or 3-tier model, probably go to those spreadsheets that people have, and you can do step 2 very, very quickly. The data is already there. We talk about the data, it's already there. So step 2, step 1, define your applications from an ops standpoint. Step 2, define and start with a simple 2 or 3-tier model, and you're really done the bulk of the work that you need to do if you do these 2 steps. And finally, from a step 3 standpoint, aggregating all that operational data into a single console to gain this notion of end-to-end visibility. But if you do that and aggregate your data, here's where when you apply this construct of your application and you take the data that each of these application layers or these infrastructure layers are producing, and you start aggregating that data, you can gain that single consolidated system view and gain that end-to-end visibility that you want. So when you look at that, we know one of the biggest challenges of a lot of legacy IT tools that do some of this stuff, it's the processing of that data, how to process it, how to transform that data, how to handle the velocity and the variability of that data. The data is in different formats. That is where it becomes a little more challenging. But I will tell you some of the modern tools out there, including the one we're about to show you, can handle these, what we call the 3 V's of this big data constructs, velocity, variability, and volume. The new emerging technologies out there can do this way better than your relational database, can do this way better than maybe your single pane of glass monitoring tool that maybe it's been deployed 10 plus years ago. It's still based on a relational database. Very hard to handle the variability aspect. It's putting data in rows and columns is a challenge. So this area, when you're looking at this problem, certainly look at this velocity, variability, and volume issue. Look at some of the newer emerging technologies out there, and you will be able to take steps to be able to aggregate that information. And finally, we talk about this transformation of merging or converting, transforming your data into information, automating as much as possible the structuring of that data, the accessibility of that information, the relevancy and timeliness. How can you automate all of those steps to transform your data into information? You have, the more the tooling can do that for you, absolutely the better. If you're an IT ops person doing production support 24/7, you don't have any time to do this. You're there to analyze the problem, find the root cause, fix the problem quickly as possible, get your application up and running. You don't have time to do any of this. You want the tools to do that for you. So in that 3-step process, going from step 1, defining your applications from an ops standpoint, step 2, doing a very simple modeling of this entire application stack into a 2 or 3 tier model, and then finally aggregate that information and using some of the modern technologies to aggregate that data, you will be well on your way to doing better IT ops. So that's the 3 easy steps. Hopefully it's a little bit of a motherhood and apple pie for all you, but we felt that it's worthwhile to go through. But then we're going to say, okay, show me how I can do that. Show me ways and tools that you know, Rick, that can help me get there. And we're about to do that in a second. So before we do that, there are some other comments that we hear all the time. The idea of blind spots. I don't know what I don't know, Rick, is a common refrain I hear. Yes, that's true. You can close these operational blind spots with your application over time. And those are where other tools, other technologies can produce that information for you, whether it's a log aggregation tool, whether it's an application performance monitoring tool, whether it's a system check tool. All these things you have deployed potentially maybe custom scripts. It's easy if you take a look at the modern capabilities of these new IT ops tools to then move that information into that single aggregated view. And you can systematically, from a problem management standpoint, close these operational support blind spots within your application and allow you to move from reactive to proactive. The second thing that gets hit up all the time is this notion of dependency. You as an application, especially if you're a large application, it's hard to, you're not necessarily an island. You actually are integrated into a larger framework that deliver all of your core IT services to your customers. And this upstream, downstream dependencies, a lot of the discovery tools can do that, can give you those dependencies, but they tend to do it at a very low level. They tend to do it at a port server level, and it gets very complicated, especially in this a middleware type environment where you connect those transactions and those sequence of network packets that flow across your enterprise. It produces a ton of noise. And we're here to say that, to do that at that level, you can do that, but you need to be able to filter that out. We recommend that you actually create dependencies really from the tops down perspective at the major application component level or the application system level. Create these major, blocks of dependencies instead of doing it at the lowest level. And that will give you, especially your app support teams, the ability to what we call traverse across your infrastructure from your applications to your upstream applications to understand the dependencies. And when people are complaining that, hey, your application is not working, it may be because your dependent application is not producing the information or is having problems on their end versus on your end. And to be able to do that, you can more quickly perform triaging and investigation and doing root cause analysis to say, hey, the application issue is not within application A, it's really upstream to us, and we need to reroute the ticket, the urgent incident to application B. We'll help them solve it, make sure it's up and running, but it's really not within our framework. And finally, people want automation. We certainly know automation is key to be able to do sustainability and maintenance of this solution. But remember, a lot of these technologies that do automation, primarily discovery tools, they often produce a lot of data. And much like big data, bigger is not necessarily better. It's also, well, I often tell the team it's just more. More data is not better, it's just more. So make sure you have the proper filtering mechanisms in place or even summarization mechanisms in place to be able to take all that data and then filter it, summarize it, and then make it more human consumable. So that's that part of that transformation role. So anyway, those are the other comments that I wanted to leave you with. I went through this presentation very quickly because we're excited about showing you what we think is a brand new product that's entering the market that can do a lot of these things for you. We have high hopes for it, and we're going to show it to you in a second. So with that, Lori, the slide presentation portion is done, and I'm open to any questions. So the demonstration portion will come next. Any questions?
Rick, we do have a question from James. What is the typical time to do step 1 and 2?
Literally, we have found that if you take the automated way, right, if you take, well, Rick, I want to do this as automated as possible. I want to deploy these discovery tools, these application dependency tools. How long does that take? Well, that takes anywhere from 6 months to a year plus to do it that way. So it could take a very long time, and especially if you want to take the very enterprise-oriented solution to do it, it will take 6+ months. Now, from our perspective, your IT apps teams already have this data. It's sitting somewhere. It's sitting in a MySQL database. It's sitting in a spreadsheet or a custom homepage, a website. The data is there already to do 1 and 2. And from that standpoint, it could take hours to define that data, get the data app by app, and then potentially enter it into a system to do better IT ops. So your choice. We recommend certainly to do it quickly, show value, gather the data, load it in the system, and then over time work on the automation process. So hopefully that answers your question, James. It could take months, and it has taken months. We've seen it take months, or it can take hours to days. So we recommend that you go to the apps teams, ask them, hey, give us an inventory of your app systems and your apps, and in this very simple structure, they already have it today. You can get it, and you can transform that data into more meaningful information into this unified tool to do better IT ops. So hopefully that answers your question. Days to months, so take the days route.
Thanks, Rick. EffectTech is now a partner of Puzzle Logic, and our team is now going to demonstrate to you a new tool called Service Advisor. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Marie Ryan.
Marie? Thank you, Lori. Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Rick, for the presentation. I'm excited to show you this new application that we have that hopefully you will see will help you with a lot of the problems that Rick has just talked about. So the Service Advisor platform is an IT operations platform aimed at the Tier 2, Tier 3 application support specialists. You'll see as we walk through it, it should help you understand what's happening around your application and enable you to easily investigate upstream and downstream dependencies. So as a user, when they log in, they're going to land on their All Applications page. And right now, we see we've got a lot of typical set of enterprise applications that you or your business may support. As I scroll down through these set of applications, I see that some of them are flagged or tagged with a red alert sign. So what this indicates to me is that something is going on in that application that I have flagged as being important to me. And we'll talk more about this configuration of what's important to me as we go through the application and show you how this can be customized per user, because what's important to me on my application may be different to what's important to you to look out for on your application. By default, we're looking at a time period here just to show me these important events over this last 2-hour period. I can very easily change this period up here by selecting a different time duration, and then my tiles will reflect what has been happening in that particular duration. The other thing I can do here is, as you see, I do have a lot of applications on my homepage. As an IT support person, hopefully you're not going to be responsible for all of those applications. So in order to select just those ones that you're interested in monitoring or that you are responsible for, you can very quickly just go through and select the various ones that are your applications that you want to monitor. So for now, I'm going to select a few of these as I go down through. I'm going to save this. And so the next time I log in, I will just see on my home page those applications that I am monitoring or that I am managing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to step into one of the applications. For purposes of the demo, I'm just going to walk through a generic accounts and ledgers application, like a financial application. And you can see how this could be modeled. This could be your Oracle app or your whatever financial application that you're using. When I go into my summary page, I'm just getting a very quick summary here as to what is going on in my application over that time period. Again, the time period carries through to this window, or I can change it to see a longer duration if I want. So if I drag out this slider, my data here reflects the different statistics as to what has been happening around my app for the last 2 days. For the demo, I'm just going to, again, narrow my window down here. So what I see here in my key stats are different statistics as to what is happening on my application. I see how many open high critical incidents are there. There's a couple of open changes. I can go through and I can define my own important or my own key stat rules very easily here. So I'm going to create an easy rule just to monitor any sort of log events that are coming in. I can give it a description, log events from all data sources. And here you see how I can define the criteria for my statistics. So I can base it on, I can limit it by priority, I can limit it by data source. As you see, we're pulling data from multiple different data sources. I can limit it by status, or in my case here, I'm just going to say any events and logs that are coming into my system, I want to just see that number. In order to activate this rule, I just need to activate it, select it to go to the active rules, and then I can drag this to where I want to see it on my home page when I go back here on my summary panel. So right now I see in the last 2 hours I've had 9 different log events come through. In my right panel here, this is my important message panel. So this is where I'm seeing these messages that I have flagged as being important to me. As I said, for the last 2 hours I see I've got this one critical incident that has been open. The default important message rule out of the box is just any open high critical incidents. This is very easily configurable, and we'll see that as we walk through the demo when I will configure a different important message rule so you can see how that impacts the application. With this data, this particular incident here has come from Remedy. We're able to pull data from various different ones. We've got currently integration to both Remedy, Incident Management, and to ServiceNow, so that, excuse me, we're able to pull those tickets easily over here and to flag those that are deemed as being important to you. So as a Tier 2, Tier 3 support person at this stage, I see there's a critical incident that's open, and a lot of times the critical one is going to cause somebody to be already alerted to that. But when I go to this What's New panel, this is where I'm basically seeing everything that's happening in my application, and I can select the data source here so that you start seeing the way that we're pulling and consolidating this information from all of these different data sources. So I see I've got a remedy change, I've got my critical incident that just got opened, but I also have a bunch of different events that are coming through from Nagios, from Logstash, from Tivoli, and they're shown here to me in a time-based sequence. By default, I'm showing them by created time. I can change the view here and sort it based on any of these columns that I have on top. So if I just wanted to say, okay, just show me based on source, I can very easily go through and select by source, by ID, by modified date, by create date, as I said, is my default one. By priority, I might just want to say, show me, I just want the critical ones to bubble up to the top. The other thing I can do on this panel is that I'm able to go through and filter this data. So as Rick said, we're getting a lot of data, so the ability to be able to filter this data and to basically find the data that you're looking for it is important. And so this application is sitting on top of a big data solution. So doing these filters, sorts, and searches is actually very, very quick, as you'll see with the responsive time as we go through it. So down here I can go through and I can filter my data here, so I can say I just want to see, maybe I just want to see the remedy incident management tickets that are coming through. So you'll see my bottom panel quickly reflects to show me just the incidents that have happened based on create time. Again, I can go through and look at statuses, look at the various different types. So for now what I'm going to do is say, if I just say I just want any sort of incidents. I don't care if it's Remedy, if it's ServiceNow, if it's any other incident management tool that I'm looking at. So I go down now and I see that I do have a bunch of incidents that were created. I have my critical one, but right before this I have another incident that's showing me that users are timing out trying to access our financial app. This has been opened as a medium ticket, so it may not have been one that has triggered people to go looking at it right now, but I know that this is something that could cause critical incidents if we don't resolve it pretty fast. So if I'm going to troubleshoot this right now, what I can do is I can say, okay, let me see, I'm looking at the incidents, but let me see if there's been any events or log data that I have gotten in that same period, so that I may be able to see that it shows me a view as to what has been happening kind of before this incident got created. So now I can see that there may have been some various different events that happened that are triggering these users not being able to log into their financial app. And if I look down here, I do see that there's been a couple of these Logstash events. We're using Logstash as a tool to monitor different log files. In this case, the Logstash is monitoring the SQL log file. So I see here that we have some SQL blocking errors that are coming on my database server. And so, of course, if I'm having some of these long-running database queries that are blocking access to the database, this very easily could be the cause of why my users are not able to log into their financial app. So as you see in this panel, it allows us to see what is happening around me, and then to see various different events that are leading up to some of these incidents that have been created. The other thing I'm able to do on this panel is that I can search, and searching on this panel is searching across all of the data that we have retrieved. So it's searching across those incidents that are coming from Remedy. If it's something like a Remedy ticket, we're looking at not just the summary, but the detail, the work notes, and the same for any of the different event data that we're getting in. So for instance, if I just go through and I do a search here for something like agent, here I see that like I'm getting this keyword matched on events that are coming from both Nagios and Tivoli. So once again, you can see how quick and easy it is to go through and do that search, and how responsive it is to get that data back. So we see now, as we said, that we're having issues potentially on this database server here with these SQL errors, and we have this incident reported to us of users timing out. So that what I would do next if I'm a tier 2, tier 3 person is go to my connections panel. And so the connections panel is where we have modeled out basically what is connected to what. As Rick had said, what part of the 3-step process is basically modeling out, defining your application model and modeling that out. So here I have this simple application modeled out for my accounts and ledgers. I see as I walk through it that my accounts and ledgers is made up of like accounts receivable, payable, accounting, and as I walk down through, I see each of the different components, the different layers in the stack. When I go down here, I see that here's my database servers that are under my Enterprise 1 here. So if I select on one of these database servers now, I can go through below and I can now see, just show me those events or incidents that are happening on this particular device. So this is how I'm able to easily see where my hotspots are, where I can see that this JDE Enterprise 1 application here is the one that was flagged as red, so this is the one that critical outage was on. I can select more than one of these CIs, and by doing the update here, as you see below, I get that consolidated list of any events and incidents that are happening on this particular part of my stack. And as you said, then as I walk down through the stack, I can narrow that focus and just show me the ones that are happening on this one particular device below here. The other thing that I can see here is that if I am having an issue with this database server, we have our blocking errors coming on here, I need to know who to contact, like who is the DBA that I can contact to try and resolve this issue, because in this case, the problem, as we saw, may not be with my users not being able to log in, but the problem is actually that the database server may need somebody to look at the long-running queries and to try and block them. So by selecting on this particular CI here, I get to see the details. I get to see who is the person that owns it, who is the person that's supporting this DBA. So it's easy for me now to pick up the phone to call the DBA and to ask them if they know what's going on with the database and what is, if they can cancel some of those long-running queries so that my users may be able to log into my system. The other feature that we have here in this tree is what we call our traverse functionality, and what the traverse allows us to do is to see that, to get visibility into those upstream, downstream applications at the application level. So here I see I have a little traverse icon. So by selecting this, it actually opens up in my second panel the application that I'm able to traverse to. So here I see that my accounts and ledgers application has a dependency on authentication service. So if there's issues going on with authentication service, they may be impacting my users who are trying to access the financial applications. Once again, when I'm over on this panel, as in the previous panel, I can select, I can see the service model, how it's been built out, and I can select various different CIs here. And doing an update of my data below, I'm now seeing a consolidated view of data from across these applications. So as you see, I'm seeing my authentication service critical outage or critical change that's open, but I also see my database server errors at the same time. So this allows us to, or allows you as a tier 2, tier 3 application support person to consolidate that data that's happening on multiple different applications and to see again that something that's happening over here in authentication may be what is triggering the problem that I'm seeing in my application or that's been reported to my help desk. So it allows us to get visibility into these other applications, and also to know, in the case that I do figure out that there's something going on with authentication, once again, as with the database, I can quickly select on this and figure out who is the right person to contact. So this can help me make those right calls and get to resolution faster. So with this, we've kind of walked through a quick overview of the product, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to step back and show you how you can configure these important messages so that solve the problems or resolve the issues before the issue is actually is escalated into some sort of a critical ticket. So as we saw walking through the demo, we were having issues with our Microsoft SQL error block. So our important messages by default are these open, high, and critical tickets. Configuring new important messages is very easy, and it's done on a per user basis. So each user will configure and define their own important messages. As I mentioned before, what's important to me may be different to what's important to you. In order to define an important message, it's as simple as doing the key statistic. You just can go through and you give it your message name. Again, you can define priority. You can define the data source that you're looking at. So it may be that I'm only looking for messages that are coming in from FogLight. There's certain FogLight events that I want to be notified when they get forwarded to me in PuzzleLogic. And further down, I can just go through and select based on the type. So for now, I'm just going to I've just put in a search term here that's saying if I see the search term Microsoft SQL error block in any log events, I want to mark that as an important message to me. I want that to be flagged on my home page. I want this to be something that I can go through and take corrective action on. So by activating this message, I'm going to deactivate my high critical ones for now, and I go back to my home page. So now on my home page, I see that I've got these 3 Logstash events that are now flagging here as being important to me. These are not high criticals, right? So this is where, again, you can define these important messages based on specific keywords, potentially in an incident, or based on data that's coming from different data sources. You don't need to change the priority of that particular incident or message that's coming in. It may just be a medium message, but it is something that you want to be flagged on, or you want to be informed that when it happens. Now when I go into my What's New panel, because I've selected these guys as been important to me, they're the ones that will flag here as been read. And now when I jump into my Connections panel and I walk through my application here, I see that all of my database CIs are been flagged red. So when I select on this, and look below, I see that this is the CI, it's my DB Atlas server was the CI that was having these SQL blocking errors. And so I'm able to easily see who is the right person to contact. So by configuring and by defining your own important message rules that are custom to what you're interested in monitoring in all of this data that's coming through, you're able to easily see here on our connection tree where in your application infrastructure the problem is and who is the right person to contact and be more proactive. This covers the demo. If there's any questions, I'd be willing to take them, or else I will pass the presentation back over to Rick.
All right, thanks very much, Marie. Again, you can use the chat to send us a message. And I do have a question here. Rick, I think this one will go to you. It's from Kareem. Can discovery tools be used to populate Service Advisor?
Yes, the answer is yes, Kareem. The discovery tools, we have an open API that allows us to consume data, both message data as well as CI object data. You can do that through our open API, or you can take advantage of the out-of-the-box integrations that PuzzleLogic provides. So most discovery tools are probably integrated to your CMDB, and if you are trusted that as a source of information, that there are out-of-box integrations to Aggregate CMDB and the ServiceNow CMDB. But hopefully you've seen, to tie all that into the presentation material about turning and transforming all of this information or this data into information to make it accessible, relevant, timely, structured, processed. These are the steps that it takes. We have high confidence, and we saw this and started working with this product. We felt that it was very relevant to the challenge of doing better IT ops, or transforming your organization. And we're very excited to be able to offer the partnership between EffectTech and PuzzleLogic. And we look forward to working with customers on deploying this solution.
Thanks, Rick. We have no more questions, so we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you again for joining us for implementation of proactive IT ops in 3 easy steps. Have a great day.